Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Groyper Report. Tonight, we have some groundbreaking news to share with you.
Welcome to the Groyper Report. Introducing the most racist men alive. They are shutting it down as we speak. Welcome to the Groyper Report. Sexist. Racist. Phobic this, phobic that. Terrorizing women across the country. Telling them to wear clothes. Saying all women are mid. Minorities fear them. The president has them on speed dial.
Guess what? Your body, my choice.
Brought to you by Frog Aura Maxing. Brought to you by Frog. Giga Chat Central, yes, thank you for asking. They all must go. Welcome to the one and only. Defending the last white men on Earth. AtlasThugged and Josh Vander Nord. This is the Groyper Report.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to another presentation of the Groyper Report here in about the second week of December as we prepare for Christmas. And I am your host, AtlasThugged, aka White Boy Deep Voice, aka another racially ambiguous Groyper, and I am joined by my co-host,
Crypto Jew Joshua Vander Nord. Happy to be with White Guy Deep Voice once again for Groyper Report.
And we are here, and we are the one network not afraid to say Christ is King, as well as for this month, Merry Christmas. If you say Happy Holidays, you will be deported. You will get first priority, actually. We will send you directly to the shit piles in India, where you belong. We have a good bit to get into today. Another huge week for everything that revolves around Nick Fuentes. I think obviously the main story also involves Candace Owens and Ian Carroll, probably a little bit more so Ian Carroll for this week. And we're going to take things one step at a time. We're going to return to the original format. We're going to go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We're going to knock some of these things out as they happened. And so I think it would only be fitting if we start with probably what was the most, maybe the second most viral clip that came from the Piers Morgan and Nick Fuentes interview. Now, this one was absolutely massive, and I was really glad that it had happened. Now, there was a bunch of reactions across the aisle of, you know, did Piers Morgan do a good job? Like, you know, who actually won? And I think for the majority, most people thought Nick Fuentes just had a better showing. And I think Piers Morgan was made to look like a fool. And one clip that we're probably not going to get into, but one major thing that happened in that interview was Piers Morgan essentially doxing Nick Fuentes' dad. And I specifically can recall when Josh Vander Nord had texted me, I think in the moments after, or later that night, saying like, I've watched Nick for years and I had no idea that was Nick Fuentes' dad's name. I'd also saw a similar push by that girl Casey as well. And it was really unfortunate because it showed the level of depravity that these people are going to go to, the way the legacy media operates. And unfortunately, Nick Fuentes is impervious to that kind of style, and he is shameless because he does believe with conviction that he is correct, and he believes what he believes because it's true. So with that, before we get into anything, I'm going to turn over to Josh if he has any kind of thoughts or broad takeaways from the Piers Morgan and Nick Fuentes interview.
Yeah, usually, you know, we talk about this on any of the NAP channels. We say you don't hate journalists enough. And honestly, like sometimes you see things and it's like, I guess like I'm so numb to a lot of these things, they don't really faze me that much. But I was genuinely shocked. I won't even say his name now, but when Piers Morgan said Nick's dad's name, I genuinely like I was like blown away by that because I was like, why is he? I mean, I'm saying, why is he doing that? We know why he's doing that. He's trying to turn Nick's dad into a target, which is beyond shitty. Yeah. I mean, like, it is sinister. You said it in your response to me. It's malicious. That's exactly what it is. And it's one of those things where, you know, I agree with Nick. He said after the fact, he goes, his family's fair game now. Fuck his kids, fuck his wife. They're on the table now. And I completely agree that is wrong. And like you said, his dad's a civilian. He wants his dad to get targeted. It's evil.
Yeah. And it was like two-pronged, right? Obviously, I think it was a bit of an expose into, also opening it up for Nick Fuentes' family, perhaps in an effort to maybe get pressure from Nick Fuentes' parents, from his parents to pressure Nick to maybe pull things back in. And it was also, the other prong was it was a line of attack. It was almost seeming like Piers Morgan was basically lining it up to place the blame at the feet of Nick's parents for having racist parents, hence why Nick Fuentes is racist. And so ultimately, Nick Fuentes handled himself fantastically during that segment, and I think Piers Morgan was made to look like an absolute, I mean, should be honest, almost like a criminal level journalist, right? Like very, very shitty. Not too many people appreciated that. And I think, if anything, it didn't get much better from there the entire time. Now, Piers Morgan obviously pressed him on the Holocaust. I think he wasn't able to grasp the fact that Nick was being sarcastic during that portion. I'm a Holocaust maximalist, right? Piers Morgan literally could not contend with the different kind of, metaphorical language in the way that Nick was talking. But we'll go ahead and start with our first clip here, because once again, we find ourselves in a position, and this is my position from here on out. I think it has now become more easy to talk about and question and provoke anything relating to the JQ than it is about women. And I have been on this train for the last few weeks, probably a little bit longer than there, but I'm full-blown pivoting to that position. I think it's easier for the average guy and person in general to talk about the JQ than it is to talk about the women question. But herein, Piers Morgan seemingly got the most irritated of the entire interview when he was pressing Nick over his misogynistic takes. And so that's where we're going to take it. Here's the first clip of the day.
Do you accept you are a white supremacist?
No, absolutely not.
You don't think white people are superior to black people?
No, I'm a Christian, so I believe everybody is equal before God.
Including women?
Yes.
So you give women equal rights then?
No.
Great.
No.
Great. Okay. So you just talked a lot of bullshit, didn't you?
No. Why are you mad about this? No.
You want women to be treated equally before God, but you don't want to give them equal rights.
Yeah, because women and men are different.
Look,
do you believe there are two genders?
It's your view.
Do you think there's two genders?
I do think there are two genders, yes.
Okay. And so you mean there's distinction. There are two distinct genders.
I think we should all have the same rights to...
Well, if they're meaningfully distinct, biologically distinct, and they have different social and biological roles, I think it would follow that we would treat them a little bit differently in the law.
Do you think the Catholic Church's teachings reflect that?
I do. Yeah, there's no female priests. Have you ever seen that?
Do you think that the Catholic Church thinks all women should be deprived of the vote?
Yeah, I think so.
No, they don't.
I think they do, yeah.
You think the Catholic Church position is women shouldn't be allowed to vote?
I think so, yeah,
no,
but I'm not positive.
No, it's bullshit.
It should be.
It should be. So if you were Pope, that's what you do. You could be Pope because you're celibate.
That's true. And I'm also from Chicago, like the Pope. But look,
Right.
I mean, women, it says in the Bible that women have no authority over men, and they can't teach men, and that's why there's no female priests.
There's a lot of
So I
things in
don't
the
think
Bible. I mean, do you take every
Okay.
word of the Bible as sacrosanct?
Well, yeah, it's inspired scripture.
That's all of
But I
it
mean,
is
is this now
all of it is
a
sacrosanct.
theological debate? Well, it is Catholic doctrine that women should not lead and teach. I mean, you're not interacting with what I'm saying. Why can't women be priests?
They should be.
Okay, well, you're not Catholic. That's not a Catholic
I am
position.
a Catholic. Many things I disagree with the Catholic Church.
Okay. Well, that kind of is contrary because the whole basis
really?
of being Catholic is
No.
accepting.
You
Yes,
can be,
it's
you can
accepting
be
the
a
authority
member,
of the pontiff.
You can be a member of a religion and disagree with parts of that religion. Perfectly reasonable.
You could be, well, yeah, I mean, you could say
Unless you're an
that, but it wouldn't
extremist.
be true.
If you're an extremist, you can't.
Okay.
Obviously, you never deviate.
That's just not rigorous.
You never
That's just
deviate if you're an
sloppy.
extremist. But even the Constitution,
sloppy.
even the Constitution's been amended. Was it 27 times? People talk about this sacrosanct document. It's it's been amended 27
Oh my
times.
goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my, this is not rigorous intellectually. This is very, this is
Just a statement of
tabloid
fact.
theology. Okay. But it's fine. Where were we? We're talking about Trump and somehow we got
on
into
Trump,
you're
look,
white
on
knighting for
on-
women's rights.
On Trump, well, I think women should have the same rights as you and I. You don't. That's fine.
Put on the pink hat, bro. Put on the pink hat. We're waiting.
What's the pink hat for?
for the march, for the women's march. Are we going to see you at the women's march protesting for women's rights and all that?
I think women should have equal rights to men. Period.
You carry tampons in case your female friends get a period or something. Like, it's crazy.
I'd have no problem.
Is
I'd have no problem
diabolical.
giving a female friend a tampon. Would you? Have you ever? I don't suppose you've ever seen a tampon, have you?
Gross. Absolutely not.
You
Get that away
you think
from me.
tampons are gross?
Yeah, they're
Really?
filled with period blood. Yeah, it's kind of gross.
Wow.
Are you into that? You like that? You,
have you ever
got
seen
a lot of tampons?
I don't think you've ever seen it, have you?
I've seen them. I've
Oh,
seen
you
them
have?
before.
You've been that close
Yeah.
to a woman? Really?
No, I've seen them. Look, I
Oh, you've seen
I used
videos?
to live with
I
women,
bet
so
you've
I've seen them around the
I
house.
bet you've seen videos, haven't you?
What? What are we doing here, Piers?
I'm not
you
sure.
really hate that.
I'm not sure,
You're
Nick.
more impressed that I'm a misogynist than you are about anything. It's
Not
very
really.
revealing.
I'm actually more exercised about your blatant, self-admitted racism.
And so that's the clip. So I'll turn over to you, Josh. I'll let you kind of give a takeaway before I go into it.
Yeah, this is like, admittedly, in recent years, all the stuff I've seen from Piers Morgan has been like the grifter war stuff, where it's like him and a panel of 4 or 5 people. And, he's like mediating. This was the first one-on-one interview I've seen of Piers in a while. This felt like I went from a time machine back into like 2008. This was such like retarded flip-flopping. And Nick said it best, was like, this is not, I mean, he said it kind of he said it's not intellectually rigorous. It's like, what the hell are we even talking about? It literally is like locker room, like fag locker room talk, where have you not seen a tampon? I bet you've never felt the touch of a woman.
Right.
It's okay. What?
Well, that's the thing, is like, what is he appealing to here? And for me, there was like 2 big takeaways. The first one being like, there's no better person to represent the Boomer-Cuck phenomenon than Piers Morgan in this 4-minute clip right here. And Nick says it at the end, but it was visible and obvious to anybody who had watched the entire interview with the podcast or the show or whatever, is that this was the moment that Piers had seemingly got the most up and antsy, was because Nick was pressing so hard against women. And what became of that was people kind of probably got the inclination that Piers Morgan probably is cucked in real life, and no joke, he literally is. And for the next 2 days, all of what I could basically see on my X timeline in between different posts about Charlie Kirk was all of these different photos of, Piers Morgan's wife had to take a sabbatical from their marriage, so she had to go find herself. You see the second one that's a public post from herself talking about Mr. Suds, wanting to, oh man, Mr. Suds. Multiple posts across different social media platforms of hers. She didn't even take his last name. All about basically drooling over other men. Now, the second big point here, too, is probably maybe the most important point that needs to be made. This is the representation of what it means to be a Chino, right? Christian in name only. When push came to shove,
Yes.
Piers Morgan literally immediately abandons and completely his value set, supposedly as a Catholic, to get Nick on the fact that he hasn't been laid yet, knowing full well that inside Christian doctrine, like, you are not supposed to lose your virginity until you are married. You are supposed to save yourself for marriage. And even beyond there, he goes, well, I'm not a devout Catholic. The second thing he says, and if you catch this, it's very specific. It's like a 5 or 6 second clip there, where he goes, you can disagree with tenets of a religion and still be a part of it, unless you're an extremist. Throwing out there that if you are somebody who believes fully the living word of God and you take it as it is, you think there's no exceptions, you're an extremist. Almost kind of placating the position that normal people typically do disagree. They get to pick and choose what they're actually going to follow with this religion. And that's exactly the problem with Christianity at large, is too many of these people picking and choosing what they think is what God wants for them, what they think is the right thing to do, what they think is sinful and not sinful. And that's part of the biggest issue there too. But Nick absolutely owned him on this clip. I think this is one of the worst moments I've ever seen Piers Morgan involved in.
No, absolutely. And you raise an excellent point about that. The hypocrisy of, these so-called Christians are going to go and these Jew worshiping boomers are going to go wag their finger in our faces, and he's comparing the Bible to the Constitution. Oh, the Constitution can be amended. You don't think the Bible can? No, that's kind of the whole point, idiot. Like, it's God's words. And I was genuinely, the first time I saw that, I was shocked. He was like, you think that every word in scripture is sacrosanct? It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yes, that's the point.
And many people might not have caught this, but there's a little bit digging of this afterwards, which was with Steven Crowder. And I think I caught a little bit of this in the clip, but Crowder presses him on this a little bit too. And Piers Morgan goes, well, like, I wasn't a devout Catholic. I was raised by people and I was around people who were Catholic. And so it's like, have you ever even taken part in the sacraments? Like, how often do you even go to church? Like, could you recite more than 3 Bible verses that isn't John 3:16 or Philippians 4:13? Like, this is the problem, and I'll try not to crash out here, but this is part of the reason why so many of the youth are just so sick of it. This is what you get. You get a guy who has almost no value set. He's some like 60 some years old, and he thinks he's going to own a 20-year-old by saying, "Oh, you're a virgin." It's like, how have the roles reversed? How is a young Gen Z kid pushing for no? Actually, like I do think people should actually honor Catholic doctrine. We have the youth is now trying to basically discipline those that are older than them in the older generations.
Yes.
And
dude, that's such a good way to put it. The youth is, as clap back is an appropriate word.
Yeah.
The youth is clapping back because these old people, it's literally the mentality where it's like they thought they were the end of history. They were told they were the end of history and they believed it. Everything that has ever been cultivated into me. But guess what? Now they're in their 60s. Now they're aging out and they're like, oh, shoot, time marches on and they can't deal with it.
Exactly.
They lived vivaciously and now they're suffering the consequences. And I say, adios.
And I think that if there was any kind of, if you wanted to nail it down to a very simple kind of just one takeaway, it is that the boomers are entirely unprepared to handle a generation of men who do not give a shit if you call them racist, anti-Semitic, whatever. They have no idea how to handle it. They think playing clips, because that's part of the operant, right? They're expecting that there's going to be a mechanism of shame, that at some point Nick's going to feel bad with this clips playing, It's like, oh no, I don't want everyone to see that I said that. But it's the other way around. Nick is like, play it again. You should play that again, Piers. Do it one more time. I liked what I said there. And they can't. They have no response for it. And part of that is because there's a broad disconnect. They refuse to acknowledge a lot of the problems that we deal with. They refuse to acknowledge their role in a lot of the problems that we deal with. And ultimately, that this is kind of the position we're in, which is what a lot of people have said previously, is we are simply just waiting on this generation to loosen the mortal coil and just get out of the way. It's unfortunate that we've arrived at this spot, but that's kind of where we are. And Merry Christmas to you, Spilly Balls. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for the super chat.
Merry Christmas, Mr. Balls.
And I will say too, make sure you like the stream and subscribe. If you don't, you will be deported. I will hunt you down personally. I will make it my life's mission. So moving on from here, what I would also like to show and exhibit a little bit, just because it's a great moment, and also combined with Asmongold too, is this beautiful moment where Asmongold just basically, I think he's showing, and Asmongold's kind of the metric of where is the kind of maybe average person, or maybe the more average center-right leaning guy. Asmongold obviously being like, I still believe, I could be wrong about this, the biggest streamer in the world ever since he started multi-streaming about a few months back. And just take a little listen to what Asmongold's reaction was to this clip here.
Very fucking cool.
Yes, I do.
One of them.
And I'm tired of pretending he's not,
Well,
to be honest.
This is the problem, you see. It's a bit like when you just say, I'm a racist. You're a racist who thinks Hitler's cool, but you're not anti-Semitic. If you're a Jewish person watching this, what are they thinking? You think...
Bro, we didn't shift the Overton window. We burned down the house. We burned down the whole motherfucking neighborhood. Oh my God. This is crazy. Yeah, this is nuts. I saw another clip about this too with no insurance. Yes, and no survivors. And all or nothing. No. There's another clip about this too. Here we go.
This is where you talk about Jews, women, and blacks.
I've seen it. You've seen it. We've all seen it.
Just take a listen.
They're always coming up with, no, it's not the Jews. No, it's not women. No, it's not blacks. It's actually really complicated. No, it fucking isn't at all. Jews are running society. Women need to shut the fuck up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And we would live in paradise. It's that simple.
Man.
Okay.
He's just nodding.
Would you like to clarify what you meant there?
That's all true.
So right there, Asmongold picking up on the same thing, and what he was getting ready to say was what we just kind of had covered, which is there's no shame element here. There's nothing that Piers Morgan will be able to say or hang over Nick's head that will get him to back away from what these positions are. And the reason why I say Asmongold so much isn't because I think he's someone that, people need to watch over anybody else, is because I do think he is a barometer for the general public, especially for men, like general public for men. And I think a lot of men watch Asmongold also because they relate to him, because I would also wager too, the majority of men are also struggling in a general sense. And I think they can kind of, just in Asmongold's ethos, they kind of relate to that inherently. So I like that clip, but I'll turn over to you, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, really, I don't have much to add to that. I completely agree. People, even to a certain degree, I would say Matt Walsh is like a barometer, but I would, in a certain sense, but Asmongold is really a more like apt one, especially with younger people. And the fact that Nick has essentially become mainstream, to me, this is one of the biggest arguments to me that Nick is not a Fed, is normal people like him. Like it reached a breaking point where unprompted, like I've been watching Nick for 8 years. I didn't talk with him to my family because I knew that they would not be down with it. Now my family knows who Nick Fuentes is, despite my best efforts. And it's just hit a breaking point where it's not that his podcast tour and all these appearances were greenlit. It was that it's become unavoidable. It became a necessary evil to the system.
Right. And I'll have a deeper, maybe more broader argument against why I think Nick is not a Fed as we get later into the week, as we cover more of these allegations as they came up. But one thing I guess I would add there too, we won't play the clip of it, is that there's also kind of the opposite response coming from other streamers as well too. And so another clip that went viral that was reacting to that reaction of Asmongold was from XQC, who is also another huge streamer. And XQC was calling Asmongold unhinged, and that Asmongold's becoming radical, he's becoming an extremist. And so it's not a one for one that all of the like public general space is moving to that direction, but there are some, and one of many. And I think Asmongold, you could probably throw in Tectone in there. It's clear that there is a strong kind of right-wing push coming in from creators. Whether it's full-blown in alignment with Nick, they're at least moving in that direction, or at least being less afraid to say things. And Nick did have a show on Monday. The only thing was the majority of it was spending time basically just recapping what had happened in the interview, and not really much to honestly pull from there that we won't get into also later on. When we move into Tuesday, many of you might be familiar with this, but maybe not, because as quickly as it appeared, it was very quickly disappeared. There was a report that had came out that was, I believe, thrown together and halfway kind of edited by, I think it was like Data Girl or somebody like that. There's one of these anonymous accounts that's been very anti-Nick Fuentes. I can't remember who it was, because I think they deleted the post. And you had very immediately a lot of people coming out and saying, see, this proves it. Everybody who watches Nick and likes Nick is all foreign. They're all coming from foreign, countries of origin. And what was surprising was that a lot of people came out in defense of this. They were pointing at the fact that where this study had came from, who had funded it, that the numbers don't add up. And I think anybody who's watched him or just feeling the general energy of it around knows that this is people just have their post notifications turned on. And if anything, for most people like me, Nick is like the only person I really do have post notifications turned on. Really the only one that I've thought about turning them on because I want to know, like, I want to see what he said. And for me, I don't know if I'm not speaking for Josh, but for me, there was a period of time, and really kind of still is, the only person I even wanted to hear from on politics was Nick Fuentes. It's like, F everybody else, like, who cares what they have to say? I'll wait until I hear what Nick has to say. So I'd imagine for many of you, it's also similar too. But before I play the next clip about Michael Knowles defending Nick, did you have anything you wanted to add on that? Muted.
Sorry about that. Your thing you said about how you almost don't want to hear from anyone else. It was the opposite, where it's like, I was loosely involved in politics after Trump, and then I found Nick Fuentes, and so I started listening to him and started getting more involved in researching these things, in being more involved in politics. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I need to like expand and like hear from all these other people. And then I tried it, and I was like, they suck, man.
Yeah.
I'm sticking with Nick. He's the best.
Yeah, for me, it was like a breath of fresh air, because I'd listened to Timcast IRL almost religiously up to that point. And when I'd finally tuned into Nick, I was like, yeah, somebody's who's been holding out, dude. like you guys all been have this
serious upgrade on your part.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And haven't looked back and thank the Lord for that too. But what we're going to watch is actually not Matt Walsh's defense of it, but we have Michael Knowles defending Nick against this foreign bodying report that had came out, and he'll give a few bit of details of why he finds it to be fake. But here it is.
Now the reaction is, it's all fake. So the New York Post has this world news exclusive based on a new report that has just come out, supposedly, that says that Fuentes' following, his apparent popularity, is an illusion. The headline is, Fuentes may be racist, but he relies on Nigeria and India to fuel his popularity online. Says the white supremacist Nick Fuentes doesn't seem to mind benefiting from bot farms in Pakistan, India, and Nigeria promoting his content, the Post has learned. This is based on a report, a study supposedly from the Network Contagion Research Institute, which is a nonprofit that purports to study extremism on the internet. Okay. You have some people on one side saying, Fuentes is entirely organic. It's a cri de coeur from the voice of the people. He's the voice of his generation, and it's all totally organic. Then you have some people on the other side saying, no, the Fuentes phenomenon, it's completely fake. It's astroturfed. None of it is real. These are not the droids you're looking for. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. It's just forget about it. The thing you think you're seeing is not true. Don't believe your lying eyes. I guess, as is often the case, on these sorts of issues, I have the third and probably least popular view. The people who say that this phenomenon is it's all bots, it's all just foreign ops, it's all just engagement farming. That is pure cope, man. That is head in the sand copium to make people feel better. That is not true. Likewise, the people who are saying that there's no foreign interference whatsoever, I think that's totally naive and ridiculous and contrary to everything we've seen from our adversaries in history. But let's get back to the first one. That is cope.
And so this was probably a shorter window into that, but a lot of people came out in defense of Nick. Matt Walsh, I think, even had a bit of a longer video defending Nick on those ends. And this seems to be the continual push. And we'll get into it a little bit as we get closer to the show that happened on Tuesday. But let's go and zoom back a little bit, because obviously we're going to talk about Ian Carroll. Ian Carroll, I can't remember when this exactly was, but a few months ago, he was being attacked for being an operative. And this was when the initial kind of accusations coming out of the Kabbalah bracelet. I think this was shortly after the Joe Rogan appearance. And Nick defended Ian Carroll. And Nick didn't defend Ian Carroll in the form of like, well, it's possible, but let's hang on, let's wait. No, Nick outright defended Ian Carroll. And Nick defended it more than likely because Nick got all the same accusations. Now he's being everywhere. He's everywhere. He's on the podcast tour. He's ratioing no matter who he responds to or what he replies to. And it was all of the same accusations that Nick gets, which is his engagement and the reason why people like him is inorganic. And so when push came to shove in the inverse, what we end up getting from Ian Carroll is not a defense of Nick. he in fact insinuates that he does think that there is an inorganic element to Nick's responses and the way that Nick has responded to these things. And so Nick, obviously valuing loyalty to an extreme degree because of everything that's happened to him, this is what kind of spelled out the reason why Nick had such a attack against Ian Carroll. And the one thing I would even point out too, which is wild, is even in the super chats, after Nick had the initial kind of push against Ian Carroll, he even pulled it back a little bit and had said, listen, like, I don't have any personal beef with Ian Carroll. Like, I like the guy. I think he's a genuine dude. He's like, but you know, I don't take kindly to like these types of things. And Ian Carroll didn't respond unkind at all. Ian Carroll dug in and continued pushing on this Fed element. And I think that's what really splintered it open. Because I think even if I was to judge that, I think Nick was kind of maybe even hoping that Ian would just back off. And he didn't. And so I'll turn it to you, Josh, if you want to kind of give a takeaway here before we get into the Tuesday show.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. The whole Ian Carroll thing is like, I mean, I'll be honest. I've said it before. I like Ian Carroll. He's watched Zeb's show before. He's watched Outside the Overton, and we appreciate it. Ian, if you're watching now, I like you. But like, admittedly, I was suspicious of the same thing. It's like, oh, this guy comes out of nowhere. He's an affiliate of Candace, who is, in my opinion, a Fed. And now he's on the podcast tour. He's on Joe Rogan of all people. To me, it's like, you know, to me, it was suspicious, but I didn't come out and say it was suspicious. Just because I'm suspicious doesn't mean I'm convinced. You know what I mean? Right. And that's the problem. I feel like what's going on now is no one is really willing to give anyone the benefit of the doubt. And funny enough, I mean, I'm still not on the Ian Carroll as a Fed train, but his response to Nick kind of notches me more in that direction. You know what I mean? Because like, I feel like a big part of the problem, a big thing I see with the Nick is a Fed accusations, when I listen to these arguments, it is simply, you're not giving him the benefit of the doubt. These are very, very weak arguments. And they say, well, it's because of that he's a Fed and whatnot. It's like, if there's any room for suspicion in your mind that someone's a Fed, you know, it's like spy games. There's always going to be some reason. I mean, you could come up with reasons to think I'm a Fed. You know, going to Charlie's thing, a thing before, and then Zeb, I'm affiliate of Zeb, and Zeb profits off of making a video about it, and then he gets on with Candace, you know, so to speak. There's an argument there, but it's not enough. You know what I mean? That's the point. And
right.
And again, I think it's a grift. He's
right.
ankle biting.
Well, what was wild to me was there was a lot of people who, when Ian, that response had been clipped, Ian didn't post that first one himself, but a lot of people had clipped it, and they had posted, it was like a 2-minute and 16-second clip. And a lot of the comments and quote tweets of it said this felt very inorganic from Ian. Like, it almost felt forced, like this. And I think the way Nick had even addressed it felt pretty accurate too, which was like this plea, like begging Nick to change his mind, or begging Nick to pivot. And then he kind of walks it back a little bit and he goes, well, I just wanted Nick to look at the evidence. And it was like, no, the whole thing you're talking about is like Nick is a general, as in like the expectant is that he's always going to be there to blame Israel for anything, no matter what the thing is. And I think that also is an element of what Nick was taking offense to. This kind of highlights the bigger thread, even from the initial kind of pushback when he gave the eulogy for Charlie Kirk, that he was in disbelief of that theory at the time. And obviously pushed back it a lot harder than I just worded it there. But this is kind of what outlined it. I think a lot of people got their feelings hurt. And I think this is kind of what I've been saying for a long time too. It's sad to watch on social media the way that men have been basically browbeaten into behaving like women, the way they whinge constantly with the comments and the back and forth, the shit flinging. And I would say I think that's pretty much what you see. You see a lot of people didn't get the answer they wanted from Nick, and it hurt their feelings, and now they've basically made it their life mission to attack or call him a Fed or anything, because to them it was so obvious. And it was exactly the way that Ian Carroll put it. Go with what your first assumption was without looking at anything. And that just simply is one of the most retarded way to look at things. You don't work back from a conclusion. You need to explore the paths that are in front of you. And obviously me just saying that will probably incur even more people getting mad and irritated of it. But such is the nature of the men these days.
Exactly. And before we move on, I want to say this about the whole situation is essentially it's Nick said, Ian said about Nick, you're the Israel guy. You're the leader of this. But what is he really saying? What he's saying is Nick is the guy who has made his bones being critical of Israeli influence in our system. And isn't it kind of weird that he's not blaming the Jews for killing Charlie Kirk? But think about, but let's play this out. The kind of people that would buy that Israel killed Charlie Kirk, even if the evidence were insurmountable, it's the people that already believe, like you and me, people that already believe things like they killed JFK. Excuse me. That like the Gaza war is intentional. It's the people that don't have these insane blinders on.
Right.
What do you think as a narrative? What do you think as talking points is more detrimental overall to Jewish power? Is it talking about how they killed Charlie Kirk, or is it pointing out how the Ellisons are acquiring all media? Is it pointing out their tactics in Gaza? Because that's what Nick has been talking about this past week. And they're still talking about Charlie Kirk. And here's the thing. If you could snap your fingers and convince the entire U.S. population that one of these two things were true, which is more important to us and which is more detrimental to the Jewish power? Yet Nick is talking, okay, we know what it is. And that's what Nick is talking about.
Right. And you made my point for me, right? And I think even with the Piers Morgan thing too, like, I made this post and it went a little viral on X. I literally have like 1,000 followers, but I got like almost like 1,000 likes in this one post. And made the point, like, if the Fed wants everybody to be red pilled on women, blacks, race in general, Jews, then I guess I stand with the Fed. And you can look at this comment here. I wanted to highlight it too, because this is like really the point, which is like, I didn't say if you disagree. I said like the way that they're behaving, right? Which is the same way that everyone else is behaving. I think somebody put in there Nick Fuentes is irrelevant. Like seriously, like the only way you can make that argument is if you are being very emotional, or you are deluding yourself that Nick Fuentes is irrelevant. He's been literally the only thing that's been talked about in the news cycle the past 3 months. And the point being, it's like, we've lost that ability, right? Now we're at the point, which most people are, and a lot of people in this chat are, if you disagree with somebody, they're a Fed automatically. If they disagree, they're automatically a Fed. And that's kind of the point here, which is like, we've completely lost this. Like, you can't disagree with somebody without automatically assuming the absolute worst of the worst. And this is kind of the bigger point with the zero trust society. Like, we are at the very, very bottom level. And so most people are going with what they already had. They're already leaning into their preconceived notions. And so we are at this very bottom of the barrel, very tribalistic way of thinking. And it's like, you don't have to agree with me. I don't expect anybody to agree with me completely. But the point is, it's like the whinging is very noticeable. It is constant. And I think this is why you're getting all these people who are talking so virulently, I can't say the word ever, about people like Candace Owens. And like, I don't agree with Candace Owens, but I'm also not sitting here going like, and anybody who listened to it, it's like, no, I find that to be entirely kind of a waste of a use of time. But to move on though, and not say too much in there, I think we actually probably should bring up at this point the Ian Carroll initial response, or the second response where he dug in a bit further. And this is the one that he tweeted directly at Nick, where he says, catch. Let's put it on screen here.
Ian Carroll came out today on a live stream pleading with me to join in on the conspiracy. If you think that, I feel sorry for you, because you are retarded.
Actually, Nick, I wasn't pleading with you to join in on anything. I was asking or encouraging you to clarify your position on this whole thing. And oh boy, did you clarify it. And I suppose the only way that I can put it is that you clarified that you stand firmly with the Fed slop narrative, that Tyler Robinson is the guy. And Tyler Robinson alone apparently murdered Charlie Kirk. And honestly, like, I wasn't trying to call you a Fed. I wasn't trying to shit on you. I was trying to actually be quite gracious and quite kind. I praised you multiple times throughout that segment. But in the spirit of your response, in the spirit of calling people retarded who have been going through the evidence for months, where I have seen you produce zero, I thought that I would put it all very plain and very clear for you, Nick, where if you want to see the evidence, I'm about to show you a whole bunch of evidence. And I'm also going to go through your response and just break down how weird and fucking honestly Fed-coded it is. Your response read a lot like a Snopes article, and it was very uncomfortable to watch because I was not expecting it to be quite that. So, real quick, because this is the internet.
So it plays this intro there with music. I don't want to get copyrighted there, but that was him basically giving the opening. That's where it was. Fed-coded, inorganic, surprised by the response, all of that being insinuations that there's something at the bare minimum off. And I think when you say Fed-coded, I think that adds a specificity to what he's saying, which is with the accusation, which is that perhaps he is a controlled opposition, perhaps he is an informant, perhaps he's an asset of some kind. And I'll turn over to you, Josh, for a respond to the super chat.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. And it's this whole like, there's so many things that go into this, the Fed slop narrative. Nick has pointed out that there's aspects of the FBI story that he finds suspicious. He pointed out when Andrew Kovitz said that Charlie Kirk had bones of steel, he was like, that I don't like that. That sounds off. That sounds wrong. And Nick has even insinuated, he's conceded in small ways through super chats, certain things. I don't have any examples in front of me, but like over the past few months, he's basically insinuated that he is suspicious of everything going on. He's not explicitly stating his opinion. What he's irritated by is all of the ankle biting when it comes from people that are so sure about what they're talking about, even though we don't have all the evidence. The trial has not even really happened. And on top of that, Ian and Candace from the beginning have been, this is what's going on. Then aspects of their story gets contradicted and it just goes away. It just disappears. And I think Nick has the more reasonable position, which is, I'm not sure. But, Nick is a bombastic guy, and so when someone says something he deems retarded, he does not come back with, let's wait for he comes back with, you're retarded.
Right. Yeah. 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 When the barrel's pointed at you, it probably doesn't feel too good. That's just the way it is sometimes. And I think this expectance that you will agree with literally anything that may come out of any pundit's mouth all the time is insane. This obviously being something to a much higher degree than any kind of average regular take you would get. But the super chat here from GeoGasser R19, I think that's a new addition to the name, unless I'm wrong, says, I think it was a 4D move from Ian's part. He knows Nick doesn't like it. Responding forced his hand into a trap and reignited interest on the subject. And it did. And I would say, I actually was telling Josh this while we were in the green room, all of what's been basically transpiring is actually, I'm getting pushed back into I think that the mass psychosis element's coming from everybody who's chanting the opposite. I'm more confident right now, that Nick is not an asset than I probably have ever been in my entire career doing any of this politically commentary. I think just given the nature of the response too. And we'll get into where Tucker Carlson is at. Tucker Carlson this Friday, what's he talk about? What's the number one problem that he says is going on? Well, everyone's kind of digging into identity politics, and we need to make sure we get the strong push away from white identity politics. Same line that Candace Owen totes, same line that Ian Carroll totes, same line that Dave Smith totes. There's a problem with Israel, but it stops at Jewish identity. Jewish identity plays no role into anything going on, and these people they're less suspicious about being the asset. Really? It's like the arguments just make no sense when I begin to look at them. Then I look at something as simple as Tyler Robinson smiling in the courtroom. So now I have to also have the assumption that he was MK Ultra and is completely fine being a patsy. He didn't do it at all. Or was he working for Israel the entire time? And for that, where's the evidence, right? He's literally wearing a transgender colored tie, right? So true. Maybe I'll admit that. I'll grant that. He's an MK Ultra product. The CIA bred him in a lab. And so there's no reason for it. Well, then also I would say for the people who are defending and think it's somewhere else, where is this robust and comprehensive defense of Tyler Robinson if he's innocent? Or where's that at? And ultimately, the way this is playing out, really, and I'll say it again, I think the volume of evidence, the nature of the case, the way that this case has literally thrust itself almost to the level of a 9/11 event. I wouldn't say it is a 9/11 event, but it's getting up there. I think this will be looked at as a day in American history. And what we have from it, though, is obviously this insane kind of breakdown from it. But to me, I just, the way I'm looking at it now, I will say I grant that there's weird oddities about it. And I grant the fact that Erica Kirk and TPUSA are making it look bad. And I've always said from the beginning, I think everybody looks bad about this situation. But I think the fact that it's reached this level and where it's at currently, the defense has the easiest case in front of them. They'll just mistrial. How is this jury pool not tainted? How are you going to find 12 people in this region in Utah? You know, how are you going to find them that don't know Charlie Kirk was assassinated by Tyler Robinson? Hasn't seen a mugshot of Tyler Robinson? Hasn't seen a video from Candace Owens? Hasn't seen a clip from Nick Fuentes? Hasn't seen a bit from Ian Carroll? How are you going to be able to make that argument? And this is part of the reason why the gag orders were getting so excessive. 3,000 people. Then they were looking for pundits too, because they know they have to, because the defense is going to have basically a layup, a finger roll. And they're going to lay that at the feet of Candace too in the aftermath of it. They're going to blame Candace for the reason why Tyler Robinson got off.
Absolutely. And this is something we can get into it now. But it comes down to, I think we talked about this a little bit before the show, Atlas. I believe that they are basically setting the right up for the Democrats, if the Democrats win in 28, for them to just completely destroy us. And they're going to use Candace, they're going to use Ian, and they're going to use Nick as a pretext. They're going to look back and they're going to say, hey, look at what he said on Piers Morgan. Look at what he said on all these guys. And they're going to come after him in 2028. I think they let him off the leash in order to basically create the pretext. And this is a Jewish plot, by the way, I think, where they know anti-Semitism doesn't carry the same water that it did a few years ago. So they're letting him get out and say all this sexist stuff, say all this racist stuff. So then they can say, well, he's just a despicable person all around. And that's why we're getting rid of him. That's why we're shutting down all this speech, because it's all toxic. It's all hateful. And yeah, I think, yeah.
Well, and this is something that I don't believe we have a clip here in the outline, but if anybody watched my show, I believe a day or two ago, when I was streaming this, there was a moment on Theo Vaughn's podcast where Tucker actually brought this up. It wasn't any kind of long segment by any means, but it was brought up, which basically was, again, another insinuation from Tucker that he does think if there was ever to be any kind of black swan or false flag event that would pin some level of blame or guilt to Candace or him or in that kind of field, in that following, then they would use that as pretext to eliminate them, right? Because they would be looking at it going, well, the only reason this person went this insane was because they were listening to Candace Owens, right? Kind of similar to how they do with previous shooters where they're like, who did this person listen to? What were their politics? It's one of the first things anytime a major instance like that happens. And if they find Candace Owens, they can listen to every single show, season 7 of Candace. They will put the blame on that. And then Candace is going to have multiple things being, going against her. Not that I would say I want that for her, but that basically seems to me looks like the path that we are on.
Before we move on, I wanted to say one thing. A comment you brought up about how there's no rigorous defense from these people of Tyler Robinson. And I believe that to me, what that shows is that I don't think Ian Carroll, even if Ian Carroll and Candace Owens are like hardcore feds, I don't think they're in their core evil people. I think a lot of the times people become feds because they're threatened or because they just crave money or whatever. They're fighting for an evil cause, but I don't think they're like they would murder someone on a whim with their own hands. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. And I think a lot of it is because with Candace and Ian, they probably do think Tyler Robinson is guilty. He's guilty of something. Even if they don't fully consciously believe that he did it, I believe there's a part of them that, and I get I'm psychoanalyzing here, but I think they're not certain he didn't do it, which is why they are not defending him. If they were being intellectually rigorous, if they were truly, they would say things like that, but they're not, and they're not even consciously aware of the fact that they're not doing it. They're just like subconsciously not doing it because they don't really believe it.
Right. Well, and I think it's also like, just think about that too. Like, I think knowing if they're saying that it's not Tyler Robinson, they know that that would also imply that they should also probably be arguing for his defense. But what would that look like optically, right? What would it look like if Ian Carroll and Candace Owens were pleading with people like, don't, like, help bail out Tyler Robinson? I mean, that's an awful look, because it also plays into the element of like the people who really hardcore believe Tyler Robinson did it because of this big Trantifa, whatever. They're going to look at Candace Owens and Ian Carroll as if like they are Democrat plants or of some, you know, fueling energy into the right to get them to agree with like a left-wing position, or at least a left-wing consequence of a certain event. But moving on to Wednesday, I think that this will open it up to Nick. We'll let Nick give a kind of strong response. We'll do it two-pronged. The first will be his kind of stronger opposition to Candace, and then the second one that kind of follows it up is a bit of the attack that he kind of put out on Ian Carroll. And so both of these moments are from Wednesday. And so let me go ahead and switch it over here for you.
Even talking about Charlie Kirk anymore. I'm not talking about his death. I'm not talking about the bullet. I'm not talking about the assassination. Is anybody even talking about Charlie Kirk anymore? Or is it now all about Candace Owens? Think about it. When Charlie Kirk died, I saw Zoomers like crying because Charlie Kirk died. I was scrolling through TikTok and it was one video after another. Charlie Kirk Q&A, Charlie Kirk interview, Charlie Kirk speech. It was young men and young women that were very conservative, that were Turning Point people, crying, saying, I miss Charlie. I used to listen to his podcast on my way to work because he was dead. And it was about his message as a Christian, his message as an evangelist. And then somewhere along the way, it changed. And now it's all about her. All of it. All the coverage of him and his death, it's all about her and her fight and her struggle and how she's the center of it and she's next and they're trying to kill her and she's the only one telling the truth and she's got another story and she could not be happy. She didn't even care about that. She could not be happier. Even when she memorializes him, she's showing old text messages. Yeah, we were so close. Yeah, he said this to me. Yeah. And I said it before. I said it on the show earlier this week. I've never seen a more black and white, cut and dry example of one person's personal flaws and defects, one person's character defects causing so much harm to society at large. Like I said, because you can look at other people like a Gavin Newsom. You could look at somebody like a Joe Biden, and you could say they're part of a system. To the extent that they cause a detriment to society, is it because of their own personal flaws? Or is the detriment reflective of the kinds of incentives that there are in the system? You know, people want to be president. People want to be the top Democrat. They do what they need to do. They say what they need to say. But the things that they produce are not reflective of their own personality. Their own personal flaws and attributes don't actually shape what they're doing. Rather, they are shaped by the system they're a part of. This is entirely different. And what to put it simply, if Candace were not doing this, this would not be happening. If she were not going live cynically every day exploiting this, it wouldn't be happening. No one else would be doing it. And there would be no hysteria and paranoia over this. People might have some lingering doubts and questions about the assassination. People would be eager to see the case against Tyler Robinson and what the evidence is. People would still be talking about it. But there would
no one would be connecting it to Brigitte Macron. Nobody be taking it there. Nobody be talking about Egyptian planes and maroon shirts. Nobody be motherfucking Erica Kirk and Turning Point USA. This is just her. Like, she's doing that unnecessarily because it feeds her ego and it makes her richer.
I don't think anybody could at all say that they don't see the clear and obvious profiteering off of the way that Candace is structuring everything. I think if people can't even admit that, like, very baseline thing, tune in next time to see who really killed Charlie Kirk. Then it's like, then I think that you're also being very intellectually dishonest. And I'll also throw the bone too, which is like, and Josh, offhand, how many times has Nick said through the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks that he's open to evidence?
Countless.
And how many, and multiple mentions of the weirdness of Erica Kirk. He literally even said objectively, when you're looking at this, Candace is winning the narrative, TPUSA is losing. I mean, like, at a certain point you go like, what more do you want from somebody besides you just simply want to hammer them into agreeing with you for the sake of agreement because you want them to. And so, and I think again, and I'm kind of in the same position too, like we need to wait for the trial. We need to wait for the trial for more things to come out. And I think a lot of people are basically not giving Nick a fair shake because obviously these provocative clips make a lot more airway than the ones that don't. And if people don't watch the show, they're not plugged into all these other smaller elements. Same way somebody like me and you who watch it much more religiously would. But I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I think the trial will expose a lot of people's mindset, which Nick basically talks about, where what you have now is, for the longest time, conspiracy theorists and conspiracy theories in general were highly scrutinized and looked down upon. People like Alex Jones, who's been a conspiracy theorist for decades, have been the butt of jokes. And then you basically have this, over the past few years, over the past really decade, this huge influx where, like, now everyone's a conspiracy theory. My grandma's a conspiracy theorist. Like, it's across the board. But what do we have now? It's the masses got a hold of it. And it's something happened. Where is the conspiracy behind this? Sometimes people get shot. And I'm not even I'm not even saying that that I think one way or another about what happened with Charlie, but it is one of those things where it's like, even when Charlie Kirk got shot, me and Zeb were covering that live on Outside the Overton. He literally got shot a minute before we went live, and we scrapped everything we were going to talk about, and we're just like covering it. I remember I said in that moment, I was like, I wonder, I kind of was like, we're playing around with ideas. And I said, I kind of insinuated, I wonder if Israel's behind this. And I immediately thought, I shouldn't be saying that. It's very unlikely. We don't know too much. But isn't that kind of indicative of, I get why people think they did it. They've done so much. I understand where people are coming from, but we can't let that assumption get in the way of what we have really in front of us. And it's like, you got these text messages where he's annoyed at Jewish people. I get it. They're stiff-necked. It's going to happen. And Nick has even said he thinks that Charlie may have come around to his way of thinking given enough time. The way the wind was blowing almost insinuated that. But the thing is it's like, if the Jews thought Charlie might turn against them in a couple years, why they would shoot him, but they wouldn't shoot Nick? And I get, we could get into motivation. We can get into, well, how would it look? I understand. That's the point, is that there's arguments to be had. The point is we don't know, but we can talk about it without like blaming everyone, without going, oh, you don't agree with me? You're a Fed. Nick Fuentes is a Fed. Oh no, Ian Carroll's a Fed. This conclusion that, like, because someone is leaning one way or another insinuates their motive, it's bullshit. And we don't need to be doing that right now.
Yeah. And I will put this, I want to read the super chat. Unfortunately, I already lost it out of the comments here, but it's from GeoGaster again. He says, Nick doesn't want to taint his his generational run with that Charlie Kirk conspiracy. What he evaluated wrongly is that it has more popular appeal than he thought.
But he is willing to taint it with being racist and like overtly sexist and exposing more JQ stuff. He's willing to taint it with that.
Right. Well, the thing is like, I think my biggest disagreement comes from the fact that like Charlie Kirk would ever arrive to where Nick Fuentes is at. I think there's a major difference between arriving to where Tucker and a Candace Owens is at versus arriving to where Nick Fuentes or a Corey Mahler or insert anybody that actually does exist in the right wing space that's not a halfway liberal. Like to me that you have to basically omit the entire history and life work of Charlie Kirk to make those claims and basically base it all off of what happened in the last couple of months. And I think there's evidence like with the letter that he wrote to Bibi Netanyahu that he was basically pleading essentially for better tactics for the pro-Israel cause. And I think really when I think about it more often than not was when he leads the letter with actually. And many people might not be familiar with this and such as the nature of these things because people have a lot to say, but they don't actually read what he led with was all of these kind of questions. Like these are the top things I get as rebuttals. These are the top things that I get as pushback from what I'm saying or the points that I'm making. And I think what you were really seeing was that Charlie Kirk, if anything, was waking up to the idea or realizing that the positions he was holding were indefensible. And I think that he was really kind of struggling or wrestling with that. But to stretch it to somebody who was literally in the middle of writing a book about, Shabbat Shalom, honoring the Sabbath, I think for one, you have to admit all of that. But two, I think there's still a huge major difference between Charlie Kirk being Tucker Carlson and saying, let's not support Israel, kind of the Andrew Colvett thing, right? Do we support Israel 100% or should we support him like 30%? And that's completely different from decoupling from Israel and recognizing them as the kind of infiltrators that they are and the role they play in the ethnicity and the race realism. I think if you're making the argument that Charlie Kirk was going to come out and be a proponent of race realism, I think that you are, I would say schizophrenic more than I would even say retarded. But beyond there though, do you have anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I basically agree. I didn't mean Charlie Kirk was coming around to become Nick Fuentes too. You're absolutely right. If he caved on any of that, it would be probably a diet or Tucker Carlson light, Candace Owens light.
Right. I have this here from GeoGaster again, and thank you for the super chat, brother. I appreciate it. Let me actually move this off of here. It's killing my CPU. He says those issues are not considered conspiracies. I'm saying taint in the sense of losing credibility. He is really attached to his credibility. And to me, I don't like what credibility?
Is he was referring to Nick, I assume?
I'm imagining so. I mean, like he didn't have anything. He didn't have a leg to stand on until literally 3 months ago.
Well, I mean, Nick's credibility, I think, do you mean integrity? I think integrity would be a better word, where it's like he wants to get it right. He does not want people to look and say, oh, well, you were wrong about this. I mean, that's a big part of the reason why he is becoming so popular recently is he predicted basically verbatim that Trump would go to war with Iran for Israel. That is really the nexus point of Nick's generational run. That's really where his popularity started to surge to the levels that we're seeing now. And he's said as much. He said, I don't score any points. And that's what this is. It is a game. We are trying to win. He says, I don't score any points by being wrong. And with the Charlie Kirk thing, I remember when he first came out, I was, because I was on the fence. I was like, this was very early on. None of us were really sure. And I was like, did Israel do it? Because all the people I knew were saying it. And I was like, I mean, did they? Maybe. There's a lot we don't know. And then Nick comes out and he basically says, he goes, look, there's a lot we don't know, but this is ridiculous. Like, you guys are making mountains out of molehills. And I remember thinking at first, I was like, I don't know, maybe, but then the more you look into it, that really is what it was.
Right. Right. And the thing is I would never fault anybody for their first, like, first
Right.
suspect. When you think about this thing, like you think Israel, like an intelligence agency, like I would never fault anybody for that at all. Like, I don't think it's insane to make those jumps. And I even said initially too, and this goes back to what I mean by like people getting their feelings hurt. I think again, a large driver of this was the way, the tonality, because Nick said it very harshly, but the overt, like the extreme kind of dismissal, over the top dismissal of everybody and everything. And I would agree with a little bit with Zeb Boykin that probably was an element of de-escalation. And I would say not because he's an operative, because in that moment, you probably do think like, well, who's next? Right? Like you are not Brilliant Hollyhand. This is the next and expected up and comer to take the reins for, that kind of ubiquitous voice for the conservative, the right wing. Even though a lot of people in the mainstream conservative movement doesn't want it, a lot of people were expecting it. And if Charlie Kirk was out, then that's all the more, open door for Nick to take that over. The biggest kind of rivalry he kind of had in the space being gone, unfortunately. And
and if I could say this, I think I talked about this yesterday with Zeb on the stream he and I did, where him and Nick just disagree on the tactics, the strategy. Zeb believes, and he's not here to defend himself, but I'm not. He said this yesterday. I've done a show from him for a year now. I know what he thinks about this. Zeb thinks that escalation to not necessarily a violent revolution, but something that is more showy, show of force, something along the lines of more January 6th style events. Zeb thinks that is inevitable. That essentially political solutions it's just not possible. And that is just a disagreement on where Nick and Zeb are, and really where I am as well. And I'm sure you are too. But the point is it's like this idea, I kind of get it like this, like, because what Nick says is anyone who's not trying to solve this politically is a Fed. If you're trying to solve this with violence, you're a Fed. And I agree with that, to a point. But like the Patriot Front guys, like all these guys, like we're putting our names on stuff. They say, oh, well, trying to de-escalate is Fed stuff. I think that Nick's take on it was he basically said we need to cool the waters a little bit before things get really bad. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because he's not cooling down the energy. He's not cooling down the political pressure against Jewish power. He's trying to turn down the political violence, because what's going to happen if people on the right after Charlie Kirk, keep in mind, these comments are from right after Charlie Kirk was killed. What happens if right-wing people start pulling black guys off their bikes and beating the shit out of them? What's going to happen then? You're going to get Antifa. And what's going to happen when it comes to white conservatives fighting black Antifa guys? Who's going to win that in the court of law?
Right.
That's what Nick is trying to turn the heat down on.
Well, an extension from that, I mean, the reason why the Summer of Love wasn't worse than what it was because of the primary operating element of the right never shows up. And January 6th being one of the few elements that they ever do. And look what that was turned into. And that's kind of the idea here, right? If what happens if instead of it's just a bunch of blacks and Antifa out burning things down, what if you also have an equal sized populace of people who are entirely ideologically opposed to them, also in the streets, angry for similar things? And so, I think everybody felt it. I think it's you can't omit that. Everybody felt the energy in the country for those few days directly after the assassination. It was dark. I think a lot of people had very, very dark thoughts on their minds. I think a lot of people were immediately like, is this where we are? Right? Was that like the first shot that came across? Like, is this where are we going to start, evolving into these things? And I think it's only I think that's the required response after something like that as a leader is to like, let's not push for more violence. Like, we don't know anything right now. Let's hold off for a second. And I think anybody who wants to escalate it from there, I think is just asking for, bad things to happen. And again, and I would even offer that as somebody who's an accelerationist, is that that's kind of the key flaw of accelerationism. It's a dice roll. You don't know, you can't control all the variables. And if we were to turn into like a war or and you add in like foreign actors and things too, who knows what the consequences of that would be? Who knows if, like, you know, if anything, China and Russia are waiting. They're like sitting there like, dude, the moment this happens, we're coming in, dude. We're waiting. We just need a little bit more subversion, and we can take them. You don't know. And so I think that was the required response. And if anything too, Nick gave the best eulogy of Charlie Kirk by anybody by far, like not even close. It was the best eulogy from anybody, from his own wife, from like any of the Trump, you know, sons, brothers, fathers, etc., the whole family. And I thought that was a pretty, you know, strong moment. And I liked that moment pretty often, or very much, I should say.
Dude, absolutely. And one real quick point on the accelerationism thing is it's like you see these boomers, they use Zoran Mamdani, for example. They say, you know what? Screw it. Let Zoran Mamdani get in and he'll make it so bad that the people of New York will realize that this stuff doesn't work. That doesn't work. That's my problem with accelerationism is it's this idea that like, okay, we're going to let the black people ruin everything. So when it all goes to crap and there's a war, all the remaining white people, because we're so much smarter, will be the ones that pick up the pieces. As you rightly pointed out, you think like if there's a civil war over here, Russia and China and the other world powers are just going to like not jump in. I mean, they're buying up all our property today.
Yeah.
They're
Right.
buying up farmland right now. You think they're not going to swoop in when chaos breaks out? And you know, it's the instance of Chicago, for example. Lori Lightfoot gets in there. She ruins the city. And what is all of the people of Chicago's response? Oh, you know, she wasn't pro-black enough. She wasn't liberal enough. That's the problem with it. So they get Brandon Johnson in, who's even worse. This isn't how it works.
Right. Well, and the thing is regardless of what people think about accelerationism, I think we're going to get that result anyways. We're about to face another historical huge collapse in the midterms. But again, this is actually kind of status quo. I think it was a leaked audio from somebody in Indiana, a representative or a senator, I can't remember which one. But he talked about how Republicans, when they've been in power, have only won the midterms, I think 4 times in the last like 150 years. So the precedent's already there that you will get the referendum on the other side. And for me, with the accelerationism, it's just a very simple calculation. And for me, right now, I would say the writing on the wall is kind of leaning towards the fact that we're about to lose any momentum we had in the right wing. The left is in a position that they will retake things, Gavin Newsom ultimately probably being the front runner for the left wing. And the way I look at it is this current direction we're on with this incrementalism that goes nowhere, that gets basically, in the first couple of days the Democrat gets into office, they repeal literally anything that the previous guy did. And so for me, it's like we continue down the path of incrementalism. There's a 0% chance we get anything. If we go down the path of accelerationism, if you have a 50% chance, or you have a 20-70, it's like, but regardless, the way I'm looking at it is at least with accelerationism, it feels like one of those cards that you may pull out of that hand could be victory. And for me, it's like, that's the calculation I'm making. Is like, I think if anything, this continual direction, the status quo, more of the same, the lesser of two evils. Understand we are about to once again enter into 2028, and you will once again, for your entire life, you've heard this your whole life, and you'll hear it one more time. We are picking and we are voting for this guy because he's at least the lesser of two evils. We're going nowhere. This system is busted. That is why I'm an accelerationist. Now, people disagree because it obviously implies violence going down that route, and I think you'd have to admit that, given that it is a dice where you don't know. But to me, that's the calculation. It's a question mark % chance versus a 0% chance. I'll take what's behind mystery door. And so going from beyond there, though, one thing I think we would get into from Wednesday before we move to Thursday is Roseanne Barr is once again going on these unhinged rants. And so this is a bit of a shorter clip, but we do have Roseanne Barr, and Nick actually responded to this later in the week, but here it is.
About it, Nick Fuentes. What you going to do about it when I tell you, you little bastard, you're going to be begging the Jews to give you, I don't know what.
Medicine for his Kalman syndrome?
You're going to be begging the Jews to help you down on your knees and repenting like Kanye West, motherfucker. Keep it up. It's a fucking, what do they call it?
Reckoning?
It's a sting. It's a God sting. Are you going to go against the God of Abraham? You're going to shit talk the God of the Torah? Keep it up, motherfucker.
Not
You'll
just the
see
Torah,
what happens.
the Bible? Jesus?
We'll see what happens when you try to overthrow the Constitution of the United States, the Republic of the United States of America. You talk shit about that, saying it ain't good, that we got to have some Catholic theology to replace it. You can kiss my motherfucking rich Jew American ass motherfucker.
Yeah.
Come and debate me. Let's debate.
Thoughts, Josh?
Where do I begin? I didn't see the full. I didn't know she literally asked him to debate. Also, she goes, the part that always gets me is that, like, you're gonna be begging the Jews for, I don't know what, like that. And to obviously, as a Christian, what stood out is the like indignation and how I don't know, is Roseanne Barr religiously Jewish? Is it goes to show, I don't think I always thought she was an atheist. It goes to show, it's like when push comes to shove, they double down on their beliefs. Like, what's his name? Seth Rogen is not religious. He makes fun of God all the time, but I've seen like clips of him in like some of his newer stuff where he's defending like the Jewish faith. And it's like, why does Seth Rogen give a shit if he's atheist? It's because the Jews are getting this vibe of anti-Semitism and they're doubling down on their heritage, on their ethnicity.
Right. And to me, it was just insane. I mean, I think you kind of nailed it, right? The indignation, or like it's hard to even say gall, because like what barrier does anybody have to shit on Christians or to attack Jesus or to deny? And that's one thing, point too. It's like, understand where we are is that you could openly deny Jesus, and in portions of this country, you will be celebrated. You deny the Holocaust, you will be attacked from across the pond and asked to appear on a show to answer for said denial of such event, right? And so, I mean, obviously, I think there's a huge inclination of like what really holds the power here, what really is the dogma of the nation. And so I think, regardless of what you would say, I think just by that alone, you would have to say that America is clearly much more Jewish in nature, in posterity, than it is Christian. Because what does it protect? What does it hold sacred? And what it holds sacred would tell you a lot more than what it doesn't hold sacred. And so, again, this is where we are with Roseanne Barr. She's taking it up a notch to the point that I do think that ultimately, hopefully, sure, her career will start to flail after this. But let me rip a couple of these super chats here. Filthy Anguish, I combined two words. Filthy, angry Irish peasant. I only kneel for Christ. Woe to this Pharisee. Amen. And that's how everybody should be responding. And Christians only too. Any atheists or Jews need to find their way to temple. This next one is from Jackson. It says, don't vote. It gives them undeserved legitimacy. That's partly why I'm an accelerationist. I will never vote again. This is from GeoGasser. I may run, but I would never vote. GeoGasser says, there's no point in any power grab if men continue to simp for bossy women. Learn to handle women first, plan a revolution later. So here's my thing to that too. This is one of the longest things I have said for the longest time, and this is why I argue so hard for the familial element. This is why I liken it to when you think about any kind of war scenario, or you hear about these stories of guys who like, I survived in the underneath the prison in Vietnam for 7 years with a broken back, and they're like, well, what drove you? And it was like, I had that one photo of my wife and daughter. And all I could think about was getting back home. And what do men not have? They don't really have much to fight for, which also implies they have nothing to lose. Hence why you are seeing so much of this kind of veracity and exacerbation, excitedness, rage, anger, and for good reason for a majority of it. And I would pose this back. Out of any people, who is giving the most Christian take on the way that women are behaving? Who is spearheading these kind of broader assessments on women's behavior? Well, it's a couple of people. It's like Andrew Wilson, it's Nick Fuentes, it's Myron Gaines, Andrew Tate on certain levels. And so this has always been the argument, which is like, they're one of the only few people who was willing to sit up and go on stage over and over again and go, yes, women suck, and this is why. Knowing what kind of attack they're going to get. But men do need to hear this. Men do need to be kind of structured in the way that they engage with women. And so, and again, another element of why I don't think Nick is a Fed. I think that is the most important question right now. I think there are actively people and men are running from that question. And partly because they themselves are in a relationship where they have literally no power, and they will suffer consequences for speaking out against their ruler. But I'm sure if you have anything to say, or to Josh, Lord forgive me.
Hey, high praise.
Right. Right.
Yeah, this is this is one of those things where, I mean, it's funny because my family watches all these shows. Um, and the thing that they get on me for it, like my my parents, they you know, they get a little anxious when I talk about blacks, a little anxious when I talk about Jews. They're like, "Oh, don't get into too much trouble now. You talk about women? Oh boy, the sit downs.
Yep.
You're never going to find a wife talking like that." You know, all that, and it's like I'm not even married. I don't have a girlfriend, yet how I feel about women is still a negative factor in my life. Women are still holding me down, bro. So so it's one of those things. You have to be above it.
Yeah. So let me speak to somebody who is married and obviously speaks very publicly. And yeah, you think I'm hiding? I'm hiding. What are you doing in there, honey? I'm just working on my computer. Like, no, my wife knows what I think and feel. My family knows what I think and feel, and I am married and I have a daughter, and I'm gonna have to fight against these influences myself. And this is what I would say. I would actually argue that the people who are on the other side of me are the ones that hate women. I would argue that when you are pushing for something that is the inverse of God's natural order, you are pushing for evil, and you are pushing because and maybe because you don't know any better and because you've been indoctrinated, but actively pushing for women to fulfill the role and essence of what men are to be, knowing that God did not give them the capabilities to be in those departments, in those areas. That's hateful, dude. And encouraging women to be like men, almost kind of making them have a desire to want to be a man. It's like, how could you say you're any better than the other side of the aisle that pushes for transgenderism? I've made this argument before. Like, sure, there's a bit more aggressive because they want the genitalia and it's for sexual reasons, but you're pushing for just the spirituality and the essence of a woman to be like a man. How is that much any different? It's like, sure, when she's in the bedroom, she's still acting like a woman, but everything else she's behaving like a man. Right? It's like, how can you sit there and balance these things? And I would even go again to like the racial element too, which is if you can make the distinction between a male and a woman, and as like the right winger, but you fail to make distinctions between races, you're just as bad. You're just as bad as the left. Not only are they genetic, they're obviously very distinct, and they would imply, like how Nick had talked about with women and men differences, they would imply then if people are categorically distinct, that would imply the law would treat them differently because they are two distinct beings. It doesn't mean that they lose their souls lose value to God, but it means in the temporal sense, we have different roles to play. And I would just pose again that people who push for women to be, tomboys and be boss girls and to, go to college and do all these things, it's like you're pushing for the same thing that you claim to fight against, which is you want natural order and God to be brought back in this nation. But it starts with women honoring those roles first too. Not to say that there's no blame to be placed on men either, but it is to say there's a large element of the conservative side of females and feminism, covert feminism, that is aiding and abetting this problem just as bad as the general push that we get from the left. But I'll push it back to you before we move to the next thing.
No, I mean, absolutely, dude. And that is one of the things that gives me is this is not an anti-woman thing. And even some of the times where we get annoyed with like women politicians, it's like, oh, this dumb bitch is doing it again. Like, I get it. But it really does come from a place of concern and care, because I think of women, even women I know that are the boss bitch category, they're really victims. They're victims of this social pressure. And I'm not like airing any. Well, I won't say that. But there's personal stuff. There's people I know that have been negatively affected by this narrative.
Right. Well, let me tell you something, and I'm going to refrain from giving as many personal details as possible. I'm somebody who has multiple times seen my spouse, my wife, weep because of how badly she doesn't want to be in any kind of position that she's been in, or have the job that she does, or even work at all, or isn't just at home all the time with our daughter. And trust me, I'm literally pushing as hard as I possibly can to make that not the case anymore. And you see that in its most natural sense, and it's like, how could you not be radically against feminism. Like when I see my wife like crying because of the way, and again, a lot of this goes back and a lot of the financial elements kind of aid and abet this being a consequence. But how could you see that? And I can't be the only guy whose wife has said these things and has walked away from the kind of liberal indoctrination that they recognize and they realize like who they are as females and that their role is to be at home and to provide. It's not to be in the workplace. It's not to be filing emails. It's not to be, correspondent to this guy and that boss and that manager. So to me, you push women to be in the workplace and everything else. You hate women. And that would be my pushback to that.
100%.
I think Thursday, for the most part, wasn't too much. Thursday, the AF show was a pretty good. But Thursday was when we got to the, what's his name? Richard Spencer collab. The only issue with the Richard Spencer collab was that it was initially behind a paywall. I don't think Nick said that he would post it on his end if he asked Richard Spencer for the full thing, but I don't know if Nick has. And of the clips that came out, it was probably some of the most dry content I've watched in a long time. And it didn't really cover any new bases at all. If anything, there was a little bit of meat about how Nick feels about Russia. So there's a little bit of a geopolitical conversation in there that had some bones to it, or had some meat to it. But it didn't really meet the bar of anything that was what's the word?
Home.
Too relevant. It wasn't like too exciting by any means. But
I know that is kind of interesting. That is because that was a topic of debate. I remember during the beginning of the Ukraine war, Nick was kind of pro-Russia, but since then he's been like, you know what, never mind. So I'm kind of interested to hear a little bit more detail. He hasn't gone into too much detail as to why, though.
Yeah, right. And it was the back and forth they had was pretty funny because Richard was like, when I hear you talk, it sounds like I'm listening to myself or like something along those lines, and they kind of like laughed about it too. So it seems they're a bit closer than what they had been recently. Let me do the super chat here first before I move on. From GeoGaster again, he is single-handedly funding the show. I appreciate it. He says, "Hey Atlas, I have 3 boys, but I see my peers raising daughters to not meet men, and I find it utterly abhorrent." Yes, 100%. And I think I might have addressed this last show too, but I do have a very strong disposition or contention really with the way that young men are raised too. And it's not in the sense of like, like fathers aren't doing enough. It's completely in the sense of like all the social reinforcement that they get as young men when they are like watching, Screen Baby stuff from like Mrs. Rachel or whatever, or they're watching Bluey. And then they get to elementary school, then they are entirely essentially lied to about the interaction and the dance that is dating and engaging with the female counterpart. And I think young boys are basically put on a path that is faulty and flawed. And this is why you get the kind of split that you see, which is you see the incels and the lover boys. You see guys who experience that first kind of breakthrough when they realize like, oh, this girl went with that guy because like she likes him for this and this and this. Meanwhile, my mom, my teacher, and everything else in society told me if I did the flowers, I did the nice thing, I held the door open, I would get the girl. So when they have that first kind of slap in the face when the world's like, hey buddy, people lie. What you get from that though is a split. You get guys who it kind of breaks them and like they don't recover from it. They become incels or whatever. They hate women. Or you get the other end and they get the chads and they go, I see how the game is played. Okay. And they like completely change their persona. And I know people have been and grown up with guys like this in high school, or one event catalyzed like who they are. And it's like a lot of times it was like a relationship with a girl or like a fight they were involved in, probably about a girl. And so that's kind of my biggest contention is I do think that we are doing young men a huge disservice by not being honest with them early on. But in terms of the show though, for America First on Thursday, that was where we got the Nick reaction to the Barry Weiss and Erica Kirk clip. And I think we need to play the Erica Kirk and Barry Weiss clip first. And this was Barry Weiss sitting down with Erica Kirk, which I don't think we've got the full production of it yet, but the clip was circulating. And this was Erica Kirk's response to, or what she would say to Candace Owens, essentially, if she were in the room. So let's take a listen to this.
Pastor Candace Owens, okay? At one time, a friend of Charlie's, at one time, an employee of Turning Point. She has been one of the main peddlers of these conspiracies, and she is making a huge amount of money on it. She is building her business off of these lies. What do you want to say to her and the other people that are putting these lies out into the world right now. Stop. That's it. That's all I have to say. Stop. The podcast.
So let me switch it here. I'm going to go to this so I can keep it on a freeze frame. Because what's been going viral today, actually, is side-by-sides of Erica Kirk and Kenneth Copeland. Now, you might not be familiar with who Kenneth Copeland is by name, but Kenneth Copeland had the infamous interview with a reporter where he looked like a demon coming out of a human body. And that is what Erica Kirk is being compared to, because the moment that Candace Owens' name is mentioned, you will see Erica Kirk's expression change into something that feels a bit more than just general human anger. And I don't know what exact freeze frame it might be, but it's something along the line here that has been floating around. And so I will go ahead and turn it over to Josh.
She hit the Kubrick stare emote. That's what happened.
Kubrick stare emote. That's funny. Well, I was turning it over to you because maybe just spend a minute on Erica Kirk and your thoughts with the way that she has been kind of behaving leading up until today.
Yeah, I mean, she's an actress. This is like TV brain stuff. Like she's going for the clip, but she doesn't realize it looks stupid and gay. Stop it. That's it. That's enough. Like,
right.
Okay. Like what did you think was going to happen? And it comes, and also the womanish of it too. They're like, stop. That's it. Stop.
I know. Wasn't it funny? She came out of character to say, that's it. Stop. It was like, whoa.
Yeah. She's like, me. Take two. You know?
Right. Can we do that one more time?
Yeah. Nick clowned on her. He was like, what did he say? Damn it. Oh, I'm blanking on what he said. Oh, the shiver me timbers. It's theater. It's theater. And that's the worst thing is it's like, I had never heard of Erica Kirk before Charlie died.
And go
but
home.
To the like conspiracy theorist point, she's sus as hell, dude.
Right.
And I'm not saying she's in. That doesn't mean she's in on it, but she's definitely profiting off of her husband's death, and it's sick. Don't you have like a 5 and a 3-year-old?
Right.
What's going on? Where are they?
You know, that's the thing. You know, she's getting. You could argue that she is getting some level of benefit from this, but again, it's hard to make that claim when her husband's gone. And I will say I will try to actively avoid saying anything like that, especially because those two kids are involved. Like to me, like that pains me the most is knowing like these kids' lives are forever changed, and now they ultimately are going to be at the bereft of all of these TPUSA big dog donors. Like they it's I couldn't imagine a much more worse situation than basically having a bunch of vultures coming and standing over you for their own sake. Look, I'm helping Charlie Kirk's kids. Look, I donated to them. Like that sucks, dude. It's brutal, man.
And that's what's terrible is they're going to try and turn Charlie's kids into what Brylan Hollyhand would like to be.
Right. And expecting 15 years from now, you'll see some kind of trailer. It's going to hit. And it's like Charlie Kirk in 2025, and then it's going to be like boom, and it's like it's his oldest daughter, and she's like, and I'm bringing like I can see it, dude. That's the way they do these things. They profit and engineer these
Israeli
things.
family.
It's kind of sad.
It's like dude, you know what it's going to be? I forget the kid's name, but Steve Irwin and his son. I forget his son's name, but it's going to be the crocodile hunter, but for shilling for Israel.
Yeah.
No one cares if what's his name wants to be the crocodile hunter too, but Charlie Kirk's kids being Andrew Colvett too,
Yeah. Andrew Colvett might even be better than Hollyhand, to be honest. But Wyan.
Oh, he definitely is.
You think so? I was going to say, I think so too.
He's fake, but he doesn't come across as like literally like remote controlled. Brylan Hollyhand. He's what's that called? Uncanny Valley.
Yeah. Dude probably has like 3 different handlers, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
But Wyatt Kaldenberg, I think I pronounced it right. Berg. Erica Kirk is the Tammy Faye Baker of our age or Baker. I don't know how you pronounce that. Regardless of what you think of her, I do think that her overt performance is obviously opening doors to people pushing even more holes into what she is saying. GeoGaster again with another $2 super chat says Kamala Harris did that same stop bit about Russia. Yeah, I saw a lot of people making comments to that, although I ultimately didn't remember that moment. Kamala Harris is so irrelevant and forgettable. Who would remember that stuff? But let's go. How did Nick react to the clip that we just watched? Let's take a listen.
First of all, how about this Candace Owens, huh? I'm going to complain a little bit about her again because, look, I'm hooked now. I'm in it. I'm into the drama now. So now Erica said, you're never going to believe what happened. So now Erica got on the show with Barry Weiss, and she said, dude, it's so crazy. So Erica Kirk does a show with Barry Weiss on CBS. It's like a town hall. It's going to air this weekend. They published the clip. And Barry Weiss says to Erica, she goes, what do you have to say to Candace Owens and these people that are pushing conspiracy theories? And Erica, like, dude, oh my. And the Oscar goes to Erica, her face, her expression hardens, and she goes, stop. And we're supposed to be like, whoa, she means business. No, you stop. No. You need to stop. Did you guys see the clip? So she's on with the Israeli spy, Barry Weiss, after she's grabbing J.D. Vance's ass. And Barry Weiss goes, so what do you have to say to Candace Owens, who built her business lying about blah, blah? And Erica Kirk makes this like face. She goes, stop. That's it. And we're supposed to be like Saint Olga in the flesh. The battle cry of the cries of the widow. Like, come on now. It's enough already. It's enough. It's really bad at this point. Like, you're not a good actress. This is not a compelling performance. Nobody is buying this. And look, I am not a Candace Owens fan at all, as you know. That doesn't mean that this does not stink. Like, this performance does not stink. Just drop it. Can you just be fucking normal? Because it's obvious that you're acting. It's obvious that you are putting on a facade. And that is hurting your credibility. And it's hard for anyone to be able to take their side when that is what they are offering. You know, the first week, nobody could say anything because you can't. When she did her speech on the Charlie Kirk show, and then she did the memorial, and then she was on the show again, and nobody could say anything. But now, here we are on the second wave, second leg of the tour. The handkerchief is back and better than ever. The handkerchief is actually sort of disappointed. Erica Kirk's handkerchief was recently beaten out by the artificial intelligence founders for Time Person of the Year. Should have gotten it. The handkerchief was the runner-up, so it was a little bit disappointing, kind of crushing. You know, they thought they had it, but didn't get it. The handkerchief is back and bigger and better than ever. It is making an appearance. We are on the second leg. We are on the 67th leg of the Erica Kirk tour. And honestly, though, it's just like, who's buying that? You remember when she gave the speech and everybody said, I've seen that expression before. It's like Saint Olga. Don't mess with the... Come on. What is this now? What is this? It's like a Disney movie. Now what? She's the badass chick? She's going to be doing acrobatics and she's going to be flipping guys over her head? They think it's like a movie. It's one of these like girl power movies. She's with Barry Weiss. She goes, stop. And we're supposed to say, shiver me timbers. Mike, this is terrifying. Oh my gosh. Scary. It's not scary. You're not tough.
So that there, to me, was like, this is now the third, fourth, fifth time he's made mention that there are like obvious, clear, like oddities. Nobody's buying the whole like, oh, woe is me, this is the worst thing ever. And so I think just there alone, there's insinuations there that like what really was the nature of the relationship between Erica Kirk and Charlie. This doesn't seem organic whatsoever. This almost comes across as like she's having to act because she doesn't genuinely have any feeling towards what literally happened. And I think all of those are strong negatives. And so this is, to me, I find this to be a moment in time where Nick's being openly objective about how people are witnessing what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. But will this win him any brownie points with the people that think he's a Fed? No. But yeah, I think that was extremely funny assessment of the Erica Kirk situation.
Yeah. Battle cry of the widows, right? And that's kind of
the handkerchief joke.
Yeah.
The handkerchief is making a comeback.
Time person of the year.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
runner up to the AI Foundation or whatever he had said there. And I guess the reason why all this is relevant and where this news cycle is going now is though because this is when Candace Owens had said previously or prior, and I think it was about a month ago, maybe even in October, Candace Owens had said there's one person that would be able to ask her or tell her to stop, and that person is Erica Kirk. And let's go ahead and revisit the past here. This is Candace saying that she would stop.
No one, and I mean absolutely no one, outside of my husband and Erica Kirk has the power to shut me up right now. That's it. There's nobody that has the capacity to get me to shut up about this except for Erica Kirk. And I will say this, like, I am on this journey to figure out what happened on that day. I'm not going to stop unless Erica Kirk asks me to stop. I said early on, if Erica Kirk asks me to be quiet, I will be quiet.
But when you go after my family, my Turning Point USA family, my Charlie Kirk Show family, when you go after the people that I love, and you're making hundreds and thousands of dollars every single episode, but this is not okay.
It's a no from me, but you know me. I'm just out here saying what needs to be said. We'll be right back after a brief message from our sponsors.
So I would lead with this. I don't really care that Candace Owens had said that previously. But the point being is if you look at this is obviously going to be then now used as ammunition against Candace Owens as like, you know, you weren't authentic from the beginning. Like you said things that you never honored or you never intended to honor. And if anything, I think it does obviously make and paint Candace Owens to be in a little bit of a negative light in the objective, in the mainstream. But also, I would even give Candace the benefit of the doubt, being that if there was information that had changed your mind, thinking that Erica Kirk would be more involved. Hence, I just present the most basic information that most people know is in any murder case, who's the number one suspect? It's the spouse. The spouse is typically always viewed as like the number one suspect in these things. And so to throw Candace a bone for maybe the first time in like 2 weeks, I really don't care what she had said previously because new information may change how she felt. Maybe Erica Kirk she now thinks is the mastermind, and she's free to think that. She's allowed to think that. She's allowed to open these things up and push those. But obviously the consequences come with that are hers to own. And so, Josh, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing where it's like playing devil's advocate here. She could get away with, well, I said that like right after it happened. More information has come out. Erica's behavior has made me suspicious of her. You know, I know we used to be friends and everything, but I'm not convinced by her performance, and she can call it out as a performance, that something's not off. So that's a little bit of points I'll score for Candace. I wouldn't, but at the same time, it's like, here's the thing about it though. We also know that if Erica Kirk had said that at any point, if Erica Kirk from the very beginning said Israel didn't do it, would in the beginning when she said that she did, just say what you mean. This is what Nick says. He says, just say what you mean. Don't say things you don't mean, because then it just gives them ammunition to use against you. And that's the whole point. I mean, Candace has given them way more than this, but if this was the only stick in the mud, it's just because she's being flamboyant. She's playing it up for click's sake, saying the only one who could stop me is my husband because I'm a traditional woman. And and the widow because we're buddies. Okay, well, the widow just said it, and it's like, okay, you never meant any of those things. Quit, just get to the point.
Right. And, and without playing any more of the clips that are relevant to that, I had made note of the fact that there's now multiple memes that have gone viral. I've seen one post in particular on X that had the caption of, "Oh, she really did kill her husband, didn't she?" And it was a screen grab of, I believe, I don't know if it was a side-by-side of Kenneth Copeland, but I think it was just a screen grab or it was a little clip of it. And so I think just in the general mainstream, no matter what side you are on, everybody is picking up on there's something up with the way that Erica Kirk has handled this. Now, it could be as something as non-nefarious as maybe they just weren't seeing eye to eye, or they were having really strong relationship issues, and maybe she was at the end of her wits with where they were at. Maybe it was just a natural kind of breakup. Or could it be that there was some kind of stronger, more networked, bigger connection there? Possibly. But I think the point being is everybody sees it. And I think anyone defending being intellectually dishonest about the way that Erica Kirk is coming off, like Matt Walsh did, I think are shooting themselves in the foot. And I think Matt Walsh deserves to lose credibility for the way he talked about Erica Kirk on his show yesterday, I believe. From here, there's probably a few different directions that we could go. There's some important things I would like to cover, but I think I'll turn over to Josh, let Josh kind of decide what more important things you want to cover, because there's a couple different things we could go between Thursday and Friday. We could look at the, go ahead.
Well, finish up.
So we could take a look at there was a strong monologue that came out on Thursday that I think was an absolute banger. Was Nick kind of generally responding to both Roseanne Barr and Chuck Schumer, kind of one of those generational riffs, if you will. It's about 3 minutes long. I thought that was good. And there's also a hilarious clip we could watch of Nick talking about Piers Morgan's wife. I think that's just funny. I like that one. But beyond there, I think the important things would be the Tucker Carlson going back onto Nick as a Fed train. And so those would be my 3 picks, whatever you think would be the best one to go for.
Well, we've only got 15 minutes left. You know what? Let's do the funny one.
Funny one?
Because I think we can maybe put the Tucker Carlson insinuates that Nick is a Fed. I mean, you've heard it here. He basically, now Tucker has flip-flopped on Nick. So it is what it is. Me and Atlas have basically been predicting as much for the last several weeks. Vindicated department, it's for you, or it's for us. Yeah. And so I say, we've been talking a lot about serious stuff. Let's end with a funny one.
Perfect. All right, let's pull it over here. Here is Nick talking trash about Pierre's wife. Well, there we go.
Sent $35. Car wash?
Mr. Suds, you finished yet? Can I go in now? Me and Mr. Suds high-fiving before we fuck Piers Morgan's wife. Me and Mr. Suds, two-man. Me and Mr. Suds, two-man on Piers Morgan's wife. Me high-fiving him as I go in after him. She ready? All right, let's go. I'm about to lose my virginity to Piers Morgan's wife after Mr. Suds has a turn. I was a virgin. Then I had sex with Piers Morgan's wife. Correction, I was a virgin. Then I had sex with Piers Morgan's wife because she has sex with everybody. She'll have sex with anybody. I was a virgin, but then Piers Morgan's wife got in my DMs and I had sex with her and it was easy. I easily had sex with her because she offered it to me. She offered herself up to me with ease and I took her up on it and we did it. And it wasn't even that good. And now I'm not a virgin anymore. Mr. Suds gave me her number, and then I called her and I had sex with her. And Piers Morgan watched it. Piers Morgan watched it, and he was angry the whole time because I'm a Holocaust denier. And now I'm not a virgin. So, no, that's a joke. That's a joke. Okay, that's a joke. But no, that's disgusting, and that I feel sorry for him. It's actually sad.
Billboard meme sent $100.
Dude, I think it's like the third or fourth time I've watched that one. I like it because it's obviously openly vulgar, but I do hope that, if anything, this is the funniest part, the person who felt shame wasn't Nick, it's Piers Morgan. Oh, how the tables have turned. Now that, and I think Piers Morgan was like blocking people left and right, because there's a bunch of these clippers were going after it too, posting things as well. And good. Piers, you get everything coming to you. Quite honestly, you do. We still have a good bit of time. If you wanted to maybe save Tucker Carlson, or we can do Tucker Carlson. Nick will probably respond to Tucker Carlson next week, I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, we got time. Let's just do it.
Let's do it. And this was with the All In podcast, but this, again, to give a bit more context, this is Tucker Carlson essentially reverting. And I think this is also maybe a response to the fact that Nick kind of went back at him again. And I think he kind of led into it a little bit with Bradley Martin, a couple of the other collabs. But Tucker Carlson, I would even say insinuates, I would say he over the top dresses it and basically says yes. And then when asked, he goes, well, I don't know. But here it is.
Fuentes' popularity based on the Groypers and this like really inside group of people who are amplifying him. Is it what he's saying, or is it like some foreign actors promoting him? How would you handicap his massive popularity? And then we'll move on.
All three play a role, I would say. And if you want to know who is primarily responsible for amplifying him, consider who benefits. If you wanted to discredit America First, a foreign policy, then you would put it in the mouth of someone who is pro-Hitler, of course. Anytime I hear someone endorsing Hitler, I love Hitler, then I'm like, the Fed alarm goes off, or the inorganic alarm goes off, right? Okay,
exactly.
So A. B, he is the product of a system that the rest of us tolerated and certain among us created, and we shouldn't be surprised. If you have identity politics, at some point you're going to get white identity politics. I think I wrote a book about this almost 10 years ago, which was totally ignored. But that's inevitable. It's inevitable. And so to fix it, it's not a matter of censoring Nick Fuentes or anyone who likes Nick Fuentes. It's a matter of deracializing our society and making it a fair society where rewards or condemnation are not given on the basis of your DNA. Like, you can't have that and hope to avoid a Rwanda, because it's just going to happen. It's inevitable. Tribalism is the threat to every society. And I don't know how we lost sight of that, but
is he a Fed? People are sort of saying he's a Fed. He's accusing you of being a Fed.
I don't know. The whole Fed unfortunately, so it's such a long story. I won't even bore you with it, but he attacked my father at one point, so I got baited into it, and I called him a Fed. I don't know. But I do know that there are, and I think that Fuentes is let me just be clear. I think he's primarily successful because of his talents and because of the obvious truth behind some of what he is saying. And it's just true, right? The government of this country or any country should act on behalf of its own citizens, and ours doesn't. And that's an outrage. So, okay, that's just true. But the white identity politics part of it, once again, is inevitable. Identity politics will give birth to white identity politics. Why wouldn't it? And your efforts to stamp it out will never work because they're too hypocritical. So the only way to fix that, if you don't like it, is to eliminate all identity politics, which we should do tonight, because it's the road to disaster. That's it.
So if you were asking me, this bolsters the argument that we have been laying out over and over again. And if anything, I will actually cite Zeb Boykin, which I think one of the things that he has said that would be a sign of somebody in this space being a Fed would be a push to the civic nationalism. And I think that was explored a little bit in the clip that went viral about 3 weeks ago at this point, where Nick said, if you're born here, and people extrapolated from that, thinking that that was him saying civic nationalism. And I would argue completely against that, given just what he said in that show alone. But this is the other side of it. This is Tucker Carlson clearly pushing for civic nationalism. This is Tucker Carlson clearly pushing and promoting for the stamping out, in his words, the stamping out of white identity politics. And that is like the last thing that any society needs. And this is, again, the same person who is willing to open up and say, yes, there's problems with Israel, et cetera, but it's the government of Israel. It's the evil people in office. It's not anything to do with any kind of ethnicity or in-group bias or preference or any other kind of connection like that. And so I'll go ahead and turn it over for Josh for some of the last words.
Yeah. And 100% where it's like, so now, like, what is based on everything we've seen since the Tucker Carlson interview, what is the best explanation based on their behavior? Is it that Tucker Carlson had him on because, there was basically pressure to, he basically was, like, I saw it firsthand where people that were super pro Tucker have turned against him because Nick exposed that he was lying bold-faced about his dad.
Right.
And now that same person is going, okay, Tucker's kind of phony. I'm off the Tucker train. Right. So Tucker, of course, has to have Nick on to address his credibility. And if you recall, when he had Nick on, what did the thumbnail say? You're not a Fed. It was the one thing Nick Fuentes said, goes, I thought you were a Fed. Oh, yeah, that's what it was. I thought you were a Fed. That was in bold, in bright lights all over the thumbnail.
Yep.
Tucker got what he wanted out of it. He assessed Nick Fuentes, and now they've already had their falling out. Now they're parting ways, and it's like, is it that what happened, or this is all part of the plan? Tucker is pushing civic nationalism, and he's assimilated Nick, who's now opposing him so that Nick can get out ahead of it and redirect us later. I can't say with absolute certainty no, but I think it's retarded.
Yeah, I guess I would fall back to, I think that to me is still like the defining line. I think that it's clear that one of the three, right? It's either race or JQ or WQ, as I'm going to start calling it, is clearly the three things that they're protecting like the most. And I think the one that it would be the easiest, I think, for most people, because especially men and women alike are already kind of showing they think along these lines, would be the race one. I think because that one obviously touches everybody equally inside of a group. Like white men and white women will be able to relate to the similar things when they have like issues with, oh, did you see how that Indian treated you at Walmart? Oh, did you see how that Nissan Altima about took out a family of 3 and they were all black? Did you, like these kinds of things that inside the groups can they relate to? And I think that's the one that they're the most scared of. That's the first kind of pillar that may fall, is inside of the groups. Now, maybe that doesn't stretch to the WQ or the JQ, and I think it would start touching on the JQ. And you lose both the JQ and the race question, the woman question becomes the only one left on the table. And then that would get hammered away pretty quickly. So what I'm going to go ahead and do, I'm going to put Josh onto the screen while I go ahead and prepare. We switch over to the members only, because that's going to be something we are starting to do. So for another 30 minutes at the end of the show, I'm going to put Josh on screen. I'm going to begin to switch it over to members only. And so you should be seeing a countdown. It should be giving you like, you have 60 seconds or whatever before you are deported off of the stream onto the main stream once again. And so without further ado, I'll let Josh sign us off, and I'll see you guys on the other side.
Thank you guys for joining us. This has been Groyper Report. It was a good show. We addressed the thing about, excuse me, this is our 8th edition of Groyper Report, and these shows, they just write themselves, guys. It's great. Like me and Atlas, we almost have to do nothing because Nick is just full of content. He's producing all this content. The generational run is ongoing. I'm excited to see where things are going. I'm excited to see where this show goes. I appreciate all the comments. I appreciate all the support. But for all you normies, for all you non-members, become one, because you can join in on the next conversation. But for all yous that won't, this has been the Groyper Report.
Where do you stand politically? Give us your political ideology.
Okay, I can say anything I want.
Yeah, bro. Say yeah. Yeah.
Rumble. I don't know, the day-to-day stuff, I'm like, yeah, more bullshit. Another white girl got stabbed to death? Of course she did. What do you expect? For my politics, I just watch America First with Nick Fuentes.
Okay.
I consider myself a Groyper. Sometimes I just wait to hear Nick's take to make sure I have the right take before I make videos, you know? So, yeah, I just go with what Nick said.